As a young man, he was the Shakespeare of the protest movement, who penned unflinching songs that forced a changing America to confront racial tensions and social injustice. During the 1963 March on Washington, when Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech, Bob Dylan was there, leading thousands in song. So, dust off your old man's records and listen to tunes like Chimes of Freedom, Poor Hattie Carroll, and The Hurricane, and then let this headline sink in. The French are charging Bob Dylan with inciting hate. It all stems from a year-old interview Dylan gave to Rolling Stone in which he likens Croatians to Nazis, kind of, sort of. Here's the quote that's causing the ruckus. Quote, "If you got a slave master or clan in your blood, blacks can sense that. That stuff lingers to this day, just like Jews can sense Nazi blood and the Serbs can sense Croatian blood." Let's get some perspective on this from CNN senior legal analyst Jeff Toobin and editor of the Wall Street Journal entertainment blog, The Speakeasy, Christopher John Farley. Jeff, I'll start with you. It was the Representative Council of the Croatian community in France that first cried foul, and the French government followed through. But what does incitement of hatred even mean?
Well, you know, this is crazy, but I want to make the point that it's not 100% crazy. You know, we have a tradition in this country of the First Amendment, virtually absolute freedom of speech. After World War II, France and a lot of other very civilized countries said, you know, after Adolf Hitler, we are not going to allow hate speech anymore. We are going to outlaw it. And in Canada, you can't deny the Holocaust took place. I mean, they have a different tradition than we do. Someone clearly overzealously decided that what Dylan said in this interview amounted to hate speech. It's not going to go anywhere. He's not going to have to pay a fine. But I think people should just understand where this comes from. It's not an act of pure insanity.
Well, and we see in Europe they don't have the same freedoms we do when it comes to a lot of things. In France, I think Muslim girls can't wear hijabs, and in the UK they're going after The Guardian today, the House of Commons. Chris, what happened to Bob Dylan? Is there any substance to this charge, you think?
Well, you know, I don't want to discount the pain that this group may be feeling or may not be feeling about what Bob Dylan said. But having interviewed Bob Dylan and spent some time with Bob Dylan and met Bob Dylan's son, Jacob, and spent time with him, I got to say flat out, Bob Dylan is not a racist. I can't believe I even have to say that, but you know, we know this in the way that we know that Martin Luther King is not a racist and that Nelson Mandela is not a racist, and we know this from their work. This guy has a track record, you know, The Lonesome Death of Hattie Carroll, Masters of War, Blowing in the Wind. You can name them all on and on, Hurricane, about standing for human freedom and human dignity. It's threaded throughout the very fabric of who he is as an artist. So this whole thing just seems insane. And I'm saying that with all due respect to whatever pain the people who are bringing this charge are feeling.
Jeff, Dylan was in Paris to receive the Légion d'honneur, the Legion of Honor Award, when he was charged. The government is not trying to fine him. They're apparently just looking for an apology. If you were his legal advisor, would you tell him to give one?
You know, Bob Dylan operates by his own rules. He is a truly great man. I don't think there is any dispute about that. He is a major cultural figure in American history, and he has been on the right side of all these issues. It is possible that what he said was misinterpreted. I think it would be a good thing for him to explain what he meant, but certainly the government should not be involved in punishing him and fining him in any way. It would be a good idea for him to talk about these issues. He has done nothing but bring positive attention to these sorts of issues. So, you know, apology, probably not. He's not that straightforward a thinker or a speaker, but he probably should maybe clarify what he said.
And Chris, we always talk about the new Dylan in pop culture. Does anyone even approach Dylan when it comes to raising social consciousness?
Well, there is no new Dylan. Obviously, the people that are his direct descendants, you know, some of the social conscience of U2, I think, is directly from Dylan. Of course, Bruce Springsteen, some of his social energy comes directly from Bob Dylan. The people that sort of sound like Dylan, like the Lumineers, like Mumford & Sons. But I think even when you hear a rapper like Macklemore sing a song, rap a song like Same Love, which is all about same-sex marriage and unions and celebrating that, I think that kind of social energy comes directly from Bob Dylan. That's the kind of thing that he used to do in terms of standing up for the little guy, for the disenfranchised, for people who are on the margins. So we do see that same strain still flow through some pop music. People like Rage Against the Machine, But again, it's hard to find, but it was always hard to find.
Christopher John Farley and Jeffrey
what-
Toobin, thanks so much. Sorry, I got to cut you off there.